The Strength card in Tarot teaches the paradox that changes everything. Real power isn't about forcing, it's about softening. And here's why that matters for your life. And yes, I can already hear some of you saying, but if I'm soft, people will take advantage of me. I'll be walked all over. I'll be a doormat. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I'm going to address that a bit later on in this video. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, subscribe for more tarot and spiritual teachings. So now looking at some of the imagery and the symbolism in the Strength card, the first thing that jumps out to me anyways is the contrast between the woman and the lion. So we've got this inner lion, this inner beast within us that's being tamed and overcome by this feminine, gentle strength connected by this lemniscate or infinity symbol to the infinite. And also the yellow in the background. This is the Rider-Waite-Smith version, by the way, and it, like I said, is the basic template for most of the modern decks. Here's a different version of the Strength card. This deck is from Tarot Gilded Royale by Ciro Marchetti, and I love this deck as well. I love many decks. I have quite a collection. Anyway, the yellow here in the background gives that optimistic, joyous feeling of being able to overcome, but with gentle strength, persistence, that quiet inner determination and grace and courage. Okay, she's overcoming that lion. And here, it's saying the same thing. Picture speaks 1,000 words. But here, it's almost as if, first of all, the woman, you can see she has a very calm, determined look on her face, her expression. And both she and the lion are moving in the same direction. They're aligned. She does have a light hold on this golden chain sort of leash, but the lion is almost like her pet and her companion, and they work together. Okay, so that inner animal instinct and drive and power that we have access to, rather than fighting it or resisting it or suppressing it, we can work with it when it comes up, and with this gentle strength to move forward in an aligned way. And just to get back to the point of anybody thinking that softening means that they'll then be a doormat or be taken advantage of or be too soft and not be able to stand up for themselves, look at both of these women, and in particular this woman. Her spine is strong. So she's definitely not going to be a doormat, and neither is this woman. She is no doormat. She's overcoming this lion. So it's got nothing to do with being a doormat. It's a gentle, persistent strength. And by giving that space to things, energy shifts and it becomes easier to work with. You have more energy aligned with you to support you to move forward, to express yourself, but by giving the space to the other energies that are around you at the time, they tend to soften as well. And rather than two harsh, hard energies banging into each other, not getting anywhere, there's a little bit of space around things that allows creativity to enter. Here are some key words for the Strength Tarot card. And by the way, you can find these if you want it in written form on my website, link in description. Gentle determination, quiet inner determination, courage, overcoming negative ego tendencies, spiritual awakening, grace under pressure. The lesson and the message of the Strength card is that you have the inner strength to deal with whatever challenges you might be facing. But the thing is, it's a gentle strength, as we discussed earlier, some of the symbolism. It's a gentle strength. Think of the old story of how, if you've ever heard this or if you never have, but a rigid tree, if something was rigid and a big strong wind came, it might snap it in half, but whereas a flexible tree will stay strong and bend and yield, but be able to return back to the original position. Okay, so it's that kind of strength. It's a gentle strength that actually overcomes. With its gentleness, it overcomes through that persistent gentleness. Okay, we're taught to push and lean in. We're told we need to push and we need to lean into things. And this is true in a sense sometimes to get ourselves going, but it's not a force. It's not forcing. And that, interestingly enough, is the name on some of the older original European tarot decks, like the Tarot de Marseille. It's called Force, or Force, from the French. And force is really forcing and pushing and trying to, you know, if you've ever tried to make something happen and you're just spinning your wheels and banging your head against the wall, you're better off actually letting go and just stepping back from that situation. And often things will just become better on their own naturally by allowing it to breathe and give it that space. So that's another way of having strength, inner strength, and quiet inner determination, where you're just constantly moving forward from that. It's an inner strength, okay? It's not a strength that you're getting from something outside, or approval from outside. That's always nice to get that approval, yes, but this inner strength can withstand disapproval. It can withstand not having that approval come your way because it's coming from within. It's my perspective that all tarot cards, and particularly the major arcana, point towards spiritual awakening. They're all pointing towards a way of seeing things that's beyond. Each card points beyond itself to something that is transcendent, ultimately, and a way to approach that transcendent dimension. And the Strength card, in this case, it's showing the paradox of being human, of being part animal and part divine. The lion representing the animal drives instincts, and the woman representing the divine feminine, which is about why it's about the softening strength, but still incredibly strong. So the lion, or the animal part, we have our instincts, our drives, that yes, we need to protect ourselves, and we'll feel threatened if our survival is compromised in some way. Like if you happen to be walking down the street and there's suddenly a large rattlesnake right there, you're naturally and appropriately going to feel threatened, under threat. Your whole nervous system and everything's going to respond and react in a way that's appropriate to try to ensure your survival. But when that enters in our world of social interactions and relationships, when somebody says something perhaps that was a little bit irritated or rude or a little bit critical, yes, sure, okay, it stings a little bit. It's not a threat to your life, and quite often our nervous system will go into that fight or flight system. So this card is pointing to not fighting. The lion is very powerful. It comes into the whole nervous system. It's been programmed that way for eons. So it's not saying you can necessarily overcome that lion by forcing it. And back to the imagery of earlier in the video, where it's a softening. The woman is opening or working with the lion's energy, not by fighting it and trying to force that lion, but by working with the energy of the lion, by allowing that energy to be, and aligning more with the space around those feelings when they come up, instead of completely identifying with those feelings and having them take you over. Recognize that you are the space, so to speak, the space in which that is appearing, that content is arising or appearing. I got this little idea of emollients from this book, Meditations on the Tarot. And this book's not for everybody, but it's a really cool book if you're really nerdy on this stuff, like I am at times. But the author discusses emollients. And emollients are in skin softening products, for example, where they heal the skin gradually and slowly over time. They soften the hardened, rough skin. So the Strength card is saying that it works like an emollient. So these patterns come up within us that are like, and this is where the real power comes from that we've been talking about, that I've been talking about here in this video. They're like calcified, hardened forms almost, psychological hardened forms that are in these patterns that come up and get triggered by certain reactions. And because we've lived with them for so long, they seem like they're part of us, we forget temporarily, and we identify with it so closely that we think it's who we are, is that calcified psychological pattern. And when it comes up, It enters our nervous system, of course, and we have no choice but to act upon that pattern, that program. So if we can remember, that's the key with all of this, is the remembering, which comes from, one way I like to say it is, it comes from our higher self or our soul. And it comes into us and we can remember, oh yes, wait, this is a calcified psychological pattern. We might not use that internal monologue exactly, but we become aware that it's not us, it's something that we can see and observe, and we can use that strength card because it can still feel, even when you're aware that it's a pattern, it's still going through your nervous system, it can still be quite strong. So you need that strength, that inner strength and courage to face it and stand up to it and use the emollient to soften it gradually, and it will soften, and it will then quite possibly become dormant again, to be triggered at another time. But at least this time you've had some experience with it, it's a bit softer, so you can soften it again. So that's again the strength card coming in again. It's a persistent emollient action on that hardened psychological pattern. And it's amazing because if you work with this kind of energy, you'll realize sometimes you'll forget that you even had a certain pattern, and suddenly, a few years later or something, you realize, wow, I don't do that anymore, or that doesn't bother me anymore. Or even a simple example would be somebody who quit smoking, for example, when every time they craved nicotine, they had that, it was like a calcification of a conditioned form that wanted that nicotine, and in the nervous system and body as well. But when they were able to quit smoking for real, they no longer have that craving. It's been the emollient, that strength factor has worked. And when people try to force themselves to quit smoking, quite often it backfires on them. They're back to smoking later that day, or in a few days, or in a couple of weeks, or whatever it is. Whenever something comes up like that, a strong feeling, a strong emotion, and it's going to be destructive, if you can bring that awareness in right away as quickly as possible and just bring in the presence, the space that's around that feeling, and allow the feeling to be those sensations in your body, allow the thoughts to race, the story to go, and justify why you should be buying into that pattern, and just step outside of it as the space that it's all happening within. That will begin to work as the emollient to soften that pattern. And the wonderful thing about this is that as these patterns are softened, tremendous amounts of energy are released then to support you in other ways in your life. This video isn't just about theory. The strength card invites you to practice, to implement, to apply into your life. Next time you feel a strong emotion, pause, breathe, observe, allow, and soften, and just watch what happens as the presence within you begins to slowly work as an emollient on that strong reaction. To summarize, the strength card in tarot teaches about gentle power, true strength. There's a book by David Hawkins called, I'm pretty sure it's called Power versus Force. But anyways, it's along the same idea if you happen to be familiar with that book. So it's about gentle strength. And it's one of the most important cards to teach about spiritual awakening. If you want to explore this deeper, read my full article, link in description, subscribe for more tarot and spiritual teachings. Light in me sees the light in you.